Silly song for you then. I.T. Madras. How are you today? I hope it's been an awesome one. Hip, 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 hooray. StatQuest. Hello, I'm Josh Starmer, and welcome to my talk at IIT Madras. It's an honor to be here. I'm really excited. I've got a history with Chennai and IIT Madras. My father used to teach there, and it's just crazy that I get to give a seminar there now as well. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to get started. Give me just a second. Here it goes. There we go. So today we're going to talk about how to explain complicated things like neural networks. And this talk has two parts. Part one, how to explain complicated things. And part two, how to explain neural networks. And this second part is based on my video on neural networks. And what we're going to do with that is we're going to go through that video, or the slides in that video. I'm not going to be playing the video. We're going to go through the slides, and I'm going to we'll go through it, but I will tell you why I'm doing what I'm doing and what's going on sort of behind the scenes and in my head when I created it. So here's part one. We'll start with that, obviously. How to explain complicated things, or 3 lessons from my dad. When I was young, my dad was a professor at IIT Madras and taught biomedical engineering. In contrast, I was too young to be doing that, so I learned how to play tabla. I've got a picture of one here, but if you can, a lot of people, when they've seen my room, I've got a pair of tabla on the harmonium behind me, and I also learned how to play the Carnatic Veena, which I loved playing. I grew up, when I was very young, I learned how to play the cello, and the cello has 4 strings for melody, and so does the Carnatic Veena. And so it was a great fit for me, and I just loved playing it. And I took lessons every day I was there. I also played the cello in an orchestra of Bollywood soundtrack musicians, which was crazy. I was like half the age of everybody else in the group, and we've just played all kinds of music. These guys were incredibly good musicians, and it was an honor to get to play with them. So that was sort of a magical experience that I got to have. I also ate masala dosa and sambar as much as I could. If I could eat that every day, I would. Yum. That's all I say about masala dosa and sambar. Yum. Double yum. Triple yum. So I had a great time. Anyway, over the years, my pop taught me a lot of things that might not have come up in the standard biomedical engineering class. So today I want to talk about those lessons and how they affected me and my work today. So first, here's a little bit about what I do. My name is Josh Starmer, and I run a YouTube channel called StatQuest. Every day, over 40,000 people around the world watch StatQuest to learn statistics, beep, 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 machine learning, beep, boop, beep, beep, and other data science subjects. Boop, beep, beep, boop. It wasn't always like this. By the way, I just want to, because this is for IIT Madras, I just want to tell everyone that India is actually, more people in India watch my videos than in any other country in the world. That includes the United States, which is where I'm based out of. Every day, more people in India watch StatQuest than anywhere else. Anyways, but it wasn't always like this. I used to work in a genetics lab and helped people with statistics. I didn't want them to think what I was doing was magic, so I made little PowerPoint presentations to explain the concepts. Eventually, on February 3rd, 2015, I uploaded a little presentation to YouTube that explained R squared. My goal was simply to have it as a reference for coworkers. In other words, I didn't think anyone else would watch it. So I'm just going to step out and to say something. So a lot of people, when they do put up stuff on YouTube, their goals are different from mine. They want to create a channel that people come to and becomes popular or whatever. My goal was very specific. I had a specific problem in my workplace where I needed to teach people how to do statistics, and it was an academic lab, and so every 6 months we'd have new students coming into the lab, and they all needed to learn the same thing. And I could either do the presentation every 6 months and spend a lot of time doing those presentations, or I could just put these presentations up on YouTube and just do it once and for all and never have to do it again. And so for me, YouTube was a solution to a very specific problem that I had. And I wasn't really trying to get a lot of people to watch my videos. I just wanted my coworkers and the new students who come into the lab to have them as a reference for when they needed them. So I saw YouTube not as a way to become, a famous YouTuber. I saw YouTube as a way to solve a specific problem that I had at work. And that's really all I wanted to do. However, over the next year, 123 people watched my video, which was pretty cool. Anyways, that exceeded expectations by a lot. I was expecting 3 people to watch it because most of the coworkers had already heard the live presentation, so I didn't expect many people to watch it at all. And 2 people subscribed, which was super cool. I didn't even know what subscribing was at the time, so I was like, "What just happened?" Anyways, over the next few months, I uploaded a bunch of cooking videos and a few other stat quests for friends and coworkers. Just like my statistics videos, I like to cook and I like to teach people how to cook. And this similarly, instead of having to repeat myself all the time, I thought I'd just make a little video and put it up there. And my channel stayed really small, which was fine for me because you remember the goal wasn't to make a big channel. The goal was to solve specific problems. But then I uploaded this video, which attempted to demystify some of the technical jargon associated with high throughput sequencing. And if you don't know what high throughput sequencing is, don't sweat it. What's important is that in the first year, 7,000 people watched this video and 48 people subscribed. That was 57 times more people than watched my R squared video, which was already pretty crazy in terms of what my expectations were. In other words, things were in StatQuest land were going bonkers. However, to put my 7,000 views into perspective, in 2015, Taylor Swift's Bad Blood video had something like 1 billion views. Anyway, to make videos to my channel, and I switched from PowerPoint, only it doesn't crash as much on my Macintosh laptop, so I like it. And now people have watched my videos over 29 million times, which is still a drop in the bucket compared to Taylor Swift, but I'm working on that. And we have over 570,000 people have subscribed, which is really cool. More importantly, people say that StatQuest helped them win data science competitions, pass exams, graduate, get jobs and promotions. So far, no one has told me that StatQuest helped them get married, but maybe one day it will happen. And regression and tons of other things with equal ease is one of the main ideas in all of statistics. It's simple and powerful, and unlike learning a bunch of ice, bam. Note, if you're not already familiar with this main idea and how awesome it is, then I highly recommend checking out the stat quests on linear models. These stat quests, more than any other, are based on the lessons my pop gave me during that first statistics class. Bam. Thing number 2 that my dad taught me. There is always a better way. When I was young, My pop had a poster on his door that showed turtles swimming across a river. Except the last one wasn't swimming, it was paddling. And the poster said, "There's always a better way." I think about this poster all the time because it gives me the courage to make also the way. And I think just because I learned something one way doesn't mean I have to teach it the same way because there's always a better way. Knowing this pushes me to try harder to find a better way. Boop, 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 boop. Bubble bam. Thing number 3. Don't guess. Do the math. Back when I was a kid doing math homework, I had something that looked like this. The goal was to solve for x. So I did a little algebra and moved all the constants to the left side. And then I said, no, I'm not. When I plug in x equals 1, the math works out. And my pop said, don't guess, do the math. So finally, I finished the math. And I saw I was wrong. My pop was right. I had been guessing. From this, I learned that it was easy to be fooled into skipping steps and guessing when the answer looked obvious. And that no matter how obvious the solution is, unless I take the time to do the math step by step, I'm just making a guess. Now, when I'm learning a new algorithm, I make sure to work through every single step of the process, no matter how simple it looks. By doing this, I often discover new insights that other people omit. Triple bam. In summary, my pop influenced me and StatQuest by telling me 1, focus on the main ideas, 2, there's always a better way, and 3, don't guess, do the math. Now let's see these 3 main things in action and gain a deep understanding of how neural networks work. So now we're on to part 2, how to explain neural networks. Neural networks, one of the most popular algorithms in machine learning, cover a broad range of concepts and techniques. However, people call them a black box because it can be hard to understand what they're doing. For example, most tutorials use cool looking but hard to understand graphs and fancy mathematical notation to represent neural networks. In contrast, I'm going to label every little thing on the neural network to make sure it is easy to keep track of the details. And the math will be as simple as possible while still being true to the algorithm. These differences will help you develop a deep understanding of what neural networks actually do. So note, using a simple neural network where we can see every single step embodies the idea that there is always a better way. When I was researching neural networks, not almost, every single example I saw out there used a very complicated neural network. Um, so complicated that you can't actually visualize what it's doing. And as a result, it's impossible to get an intuition as to what it's doing. It seems like magic. I don't know if you guys have, there's a very, very popular and amazing uh, YouTuber named 3 Blue 1 Brown. You, it's fun to look at and great. And he covers some of the details, but you're left with no intuition about what that neural network is doing, the one that he explains. You have no idea, and I think he even says it's kind of like magic, and it's not kind of like magic. It's very simple, and we're going to go through that. So I'm not saying that my video is better than his, but I think in terms of giving you an intuition as to what a neural network is going to do. This is a better way to do it than what we're going to do today, and it took me a long time to even come up with this because everyone was doing it one way. It was difficult for me to even see that there was an alternative. because I just looked and I saw what everyone was doing do. I didn't even really think about it. I just assumed that's what you did. And it took me a while to realize that no, if I really want to have an intuition about what's going on, I have to simplify things. I have to break them down into little pieces that we can. The green squiggle is close to 0 for low dosages, close to 1 for medium dosages, and close to 0 for high dosages. And even if we have a really complicated data set like this, a neural network can fit a squiggle to it. So this is the main idea. Neural networks fit squiggles to data instead of straight lines. If you remember one thing from this whole talk, I want you to remember that neural networks fit squiggles to data instead of straight lines. Now, in this StatQuest, we're going to use this super simple data set and show how this neural network creates this green squiggle. But first, let's just talk about what a neural network is. A neural network consists of nodes and connections between the nodes. Note, the numbers along each connection represent parameter values that were estimated when this neural network was fit to the data. For now, just know that these parameter estimates are analogous to the slope and intercept values that we solve for when we fit a straight line to data. Likewise, a neural network starts out with unknown parameter values that are estimated when we fit the neural network to the data set using a method called backpropagation. If you want to learn more about how backpropagation estimates these parameters, you can check out the quest online. But for now, just assume that we've already fit this neural network to this specific data set, and that means we have already estimated these parameters. Also, you may have noticed that some of the nodes have curved lines inside of them. These bent or curved lines are the building blocks for fitting a squiggle to data. Today, I want to show you how these identical curves can be reshaped by the parameter values and then added together to get a green squiggle that fits the data. Note, there are many common bent or curved lines that we can choose for a neural network. This specific curved line is called Soft Plus, which sounds like a brand of toilet paper. Boop. Alternatively, we could use this bent line called ReLU, which is short for Rectified Linear Unit and sounds like a robot. Or we could use a sigmoid shape or any other bent or curved line. Oh no, it's the dreaded terminology alert. The curved or bent lines are called activation functions. By the way, I'm going to step out just for a second. Um, Whenever you see a terminology alert, that's basically me saying this is not an actual main idea, but it's an important thing if you're going to communicate to other people about your neural network. Uh, a lot of people get bent out of shape and they think activation functions are the end all be all. They're not the main idea. That it's the fact that it's called an activation function. What's important isn't that it's called an activation function. What's important, what is a main idea here, is that it's a curved or bent line. It has to be some nonlinear thing. And by nonlinear, I mean like linear as in a line rather than like in a linear model sense. Um, so it's important activation functions that allows you to work with neural networks. But what's more important is to know that it's a curved or a bent line. It's something nonlinear. When you build a neural network, you have to decide which activation function or functions you want to use. When most people teach neural networks, they use the sigmoid activation function. However, in practice, it is much more common to use the ReLU activation function or the soft plus activation function. So we'll use the soft plus activation function for this StatQuest. Note, teaching with the soft plus activation function, which is commonly used in practice, instead of the sigmoid curve, which is rarely used, is another example of the lesson there is always a better way. And to be honest, I feel like again, when I did the research for this StatQuest, everyone was teaching with the sigmoid. I think is actually a disservice to the data science and machine learning community. And the reason why I feel that way is neural networks were kind of have been around since the 1940s, so they've been around for forever, almost 80 years, right? But up until about 10 years ago, neural networks were basically toys. They didn't really do anything interesting at all. I mean, like little over away from the sigmoid curve was the major thing that made neural networks suddenly infinitely more interesting to us as data science and machine learning practitioners. And so I think it's a little bit of a disservice to teach the sigmoid because it gets people locked into a mentality of like, oh, I'm using a neural network, I'm going to use a sigmoid. No, if you want to make a toy, that's what you do. If you want to make a real neural network that's going to do real stuff, you use ReLU or Soft Plus. You do something else. And so I think it's important to start people off in the right mindset of here's how we're actually going to do neural networks. Okay, so for this specific neural network, we've got something as simple as they get. It only has one input node for where we plug in the dosage and one output node to tell us the predicted effectiveness, and only two nodes between the input and output nodes. However, in practice, neural networks are usually much fancier and have more than one input node, more than one output node, different layers of nodes between the input and output nodes, and a spider web of connections between each layer of nodes. Oh no, it's another dreaded terminology alert. So not a main idea, but terminology that you need to know if you're going to talk to other people or implement these things. The layers of nodes between the input and output nodes are called hidden layers. When you build a neural network, one of the first things you do is decide how many hidden layers you want and how many nodes go into each hidden layer. Although there are rules of thumb for making decisions about the hidden layers, and rules of thumb just means general guidelines, you essentially make a guess and see how well the neural network performs, adding more layers and nodes if needed. Now, even though this neural network looks fancy, it is still made from the same parts used in this simple neural network, which only has one hidden layer with two nodes. So let's learn how this neural network creates new shapes from the curved or bent lines in the hidden layer, and then adds them together to get a green squiggle that fits the data. Note, to keep the math simple, let's assume dosages go from 0 for low to 1 for high. Now, to get from the input node to the top node in the hidden layer, this connection multiplies the dosage by negative 34.4 and adds 2.14. And the result is an x-axis coordinate for the activation function. Whoop. For example, the lowest dosage 0 multiplied by negative 34.4. We add 2.14 to get 2.14 as the x-axis coordinate for the activation function. Get the corresponding y-axis value, we plug 2.14 into the activation, which in this case is the soft plus function. Note, if we had chosen the sigmoid activation function or sigmoid curve for the activation function, then we would plug 2.14 into the equation for the sigmoid curve. And if we had chosen the ReLU bent line for the log of 1 plus e raised to the 2.14 is 2.25. Anyway, the y-axis coordinate for the activation function is 2.25. So let's extend this y-axis up a little bit and put a blue dot 0.1 into the input The x-axis coordinate for the activation function is negative 1.3, and the corresponding y-axis value is 2.24. Let's put a blue dot at 0.24 for dosage equals 0.1. And if we continue to increase the dosage values all the way to 1, which is the maximum dosage, this blue curve, coordinate for the blue curve is 2.25. So we multiply 2.25 by negative 1.3, and we get negative 2.93. And negative 2.93 corresponds to this position on the y-axis. Likewise, we multiply all of the other y-axis coordinates on the blue curve by negative 1.3. We end up with this new blue curve. Bam! Now let's focus on the connection from the input node to the bottom node in the hidden layer. However, this time we multiply the dosage by negative 2.52 instead of negative 34.4, and we add 1.29 instead of 2.14 to get an x-axis coordinate for the activation function. Remember, these values come from fitting the neural network to data with backpropagation, and you can learn all about it on StatQuest. Now, if we plug in the lowest dosage, 0, into the neural network, then the x-axis coordinate for the activation function is 1.29. And we plug 1.29 into the activation function to get the corresponding y-axis value and get 1.53. And that corresponds to this yellow dot. Now we plug in dosage values from 0 to 1 to get the corresponding y-axis values. And we get this orange curve. Note, just like before, I want to point out that the full range of dosage values from 0 to 1 corresponds to this narrow range of values from the activation function. In other words, when we plug dosage values from 0 to 1 into the neural network, then we only get x-axis coordinates that are within the red box. And thus, only the corresponding y-axis values in the red box are used to make the new orange curve. So we see that fitting a neural network to data gives us different parameter estimates on the connections, and that results in each node in a hidden layer using different portions of the activation function, so different slices of that identical function. And as a result, we can create new and exciting shapes. Now, just like before, we scale the y-axis coordinates on the orange curve. Only this time we scale by a positive number, 2.28. Boop, 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 boop. And that gives us this new. Now the neural network tells us to add the y-axis coordinates from the blue and orange, from the blue curve to the orange curve. So those are just the x-axis coordinates, adding them together, and we get this green shape. And that gives us the green squiggle. 0.58 from the y-axis values to get on the green squiggle, and we have a green squiggle that fits the data. Bubble bam. Note, by doing the math, we saw how this neural network fit the squiggle to the data. And as a result, we have a deep understanding of what's going on. We understand this by different factors, and we're flipping and stretching it out and just manipulating different portions of those activation functions. And we saw that by doing the math one step at a time. If we hadn't done the math one step at a time, we would have never caught on to this. We would never understand how those activation functions are actually playing a role in things. I remember when I first looked at the activation functions, I saw that they were all the same. And I was like, well, how do you get different shapes if all the curves are the same? Well, now I can see how we're getting different shapes because we're using different parts of the curve, and then we're scaling it with a different factor. Okay, now if someone comes along and says they are using dosage equals 0.5, we can look at the corresponding y-axis coordinate on the green squiggle and see that the dosage will be effective. Or we can solve for the y-axis coordinate by plugging dosage equals 0.5 network and do the math. And this is when we sing a little song. Boop, 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 boop. This is my song for doing the math. Boop, 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 boo. This is my song for doing the math. Boop, 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 boop. This is my song for doing the math. And we see that the y-axis coordinate on the green squiggle is 1.030. We will conclude that dosage equals 0.5 is effective. Bam. Now, if you've made it this far, you may be wondering why this is called a neural network instead of a big fancy squiggle fitting machine. The reason is that way back in the 1940s and 50s, when neural networks were invented, they thought the nodes were vaguely like neurons, and the connections between the nodes were sort of like synapses. And actually, this analogy to the brain is what led them to originally think that that sigmoid curve, the thing that, in summary, this StatQuest works because of the 3 bits of advice from my dad. 1, focus on the main ideas. Neural networks fit squiggles to data instead of straight lines. So that's the main idea. And I try to hammer that in throughout the entire thing. We had a couple of terminology alerts and we had to do some math. But the main idea that I was trying to constantly talk about was how that we have a squiggle fit to our data. 2, there is always a better way. We used a simple example rather than a complex linear algebra. Pretty much everyone else is using complex linear algebra and very complicated neural network. And some people think that this is true. I did not actually dumb down the neural network. The neural network that you saw is a real neural network. So I'm not like dumbing it down at all. All I'm doing is making it easier to see what's going on. And that basically brings you up to give you deeper understanding. So instead of dumbing things down, I'm bringing you up by showing you how it works one step at a time. And in order to show you how it works, we have to use a very simple example. Lastly, don't guess and do the math. When we did the math, we saw how the squiggle was created one step at a time. So that was important for me just to learn how these things worked. But I also hope it was helpful for you to get a deeper intuition as to what's happening when we multiply the input values by weights and we then add biases to them. And then we use that as input for an activation function. Anyways, that's it for this talk. I'd be happy to take questions if that's possible. But anyways, I think my dad might be watching, and so I just want to say, hey, Dad, thanks for everything. I really appreciate it. This wouldn't be the same without you, for sure. So thanks again for everything you've done. Okay. Hello? It's okay. Sure.
Hello, sir. It's Vishek here. Not really a question, but a request. So we are like intrigued by the way by which you explain the things quite easily, but also like coming to the specific example of neural network. We know that how it works now, but can you also like make some videos about the explainability of that model?
Oh, so explainability?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Something in your style of bringing the things simply in terms of explainability.
Yeah. That's in the works, actually. I've got, and actually you can see this on, if you're on Twitter at all, and back in July and August, I did some notes. I posted some notes on something called Shap and Shapley values, which are used for explainable AI. And it's a method of sort of tinkering around with your data set, your training data, as a way to figure out how each component contributes to the final prediction. And I got some notes for those. And as soon as I have a spare minute, I want to convert those notes into a StatQuest and show how we can sort of use Shap and Shapley values in order to explain how neural networks work and what the significance of each part is. So,
Sure, sir. We'll be waiting for that eagerly. Thank you.
Hooray.
And not really a question, but like I'm super, in the fangirl mode. So a big thank you for whatever you do on the channel. I mean, it's like there are millions of people who get really lot of help from your videos. So really, thank you so much for coming and doing whatever you do on the channel. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Hooray. Thank you very much. That means a lot to me. It's really nice.
Thank you so much, sir. And also the songs are pretty like awesome. So thank you so much.
I'm glad you like them. Hooray. Hello. Oh.
So
nice.
One testimonial from my side, Abhishek here. Again, how StatQuest helped me. It helped me to come into IIT.
No way. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
I'm actually having an electronics background, but now I'm into machine learning for business specifically. So my interview, I kind of aced it with StatQuest.
Yay. That's great. Oh my gosh. I'll have to add that onto the list of things StatQuest has helped people do. Get into IIT is pretty amazing, right? I mean, IIT is the best. So, wow, that says a lot. Thank you. Oh, cool. You made my day. Waiting for a question. Here's the question. I'll tell you what I do, and it's very humbling. What I do, at least it's very humbling to me. I read everything I can find about it. You can read and watch YouTube videos. I actually avoid YouTube videos personally, because I don't want to copy them. I try to watch as little as possible because I don't want to copy people. You, on the other hand, if you're not trying to create a YouTube channel, are at your liberty to do whatever you want. And I encourage, there's a lot of great YouTube content out there, including StatQuest, and there's other stuff as well. There's awesome stuff out there. So I encourage it. But for me, I read get it. You can actually usually watch the video and it'll help you understand. That's one of my favorite books. Also, Penn State has a wonderful website. Penn State is a school in Pennsylvania. And they have a wonderful statistics website that explains everything. And I just, when I'm researching things, I see I read everything I can. I usually don't understand any of it. And that's humbling and frustrating. However, I start reading everything again, the same stuff over again. And the second time I read through everything, a couple of things might make sense that it didn't make sense the first time. Like maybe I was reading all that stuff, nothing made sense, but I was still picking up stuff. I was learning some terminology, becoming a little more comfortable with the language. And so the second time I go through, I don't freak out when I see a word I don't know what it means because I've seen it before at this point. So I read it again and I get a little bit more out of it. And then I just keep doing this and I spend more weeks just rereading everything, going back to these pages, and you start filtering out the bad web pages or documents. I also read a lot of the original documents. Sometimes those are easy and informative. Sometimes they're difficult and informative, and sometimes they're neither. And so it's not always a golden ticket to have your original manuscript, but it's always worth looking at and trying to figure out how much you can learn from it. Anyway, so I read everything and eventually I start learning, but it just takes many cycles of reading and rereading before I start understanding. And then what I do is if there's an R or Python implementation of whatever it is, I come up with a very simple data set. As you saw here, we had a simple data set that basically had 3 data points. We had low, medium, and high, with low being 0, medium output value being 1, and high output value being 0. And so it was a real simple data set. And I just used some off the shelf neural network program, and I put in my simple data set and I just saw what happened, and it didn't work. And I was like, well, what happened? And so I had to fiddle around with it. And that's when the learning, I got to figure out why my expectations were wrong, and figure out what actually happened. So a lot of learning happens that way. And so if you're trying to learn stuff on your own, I highly recommend, one, reading a lot of stuff. And then if you can find some off the shelf thing, put in a simple data set where you think you know what you're going to get on the outside output, and see what you get. And then, I get it. You'll learn that way. So that's my technique for step-by-step learning new stuff. And my recommendation for the introduction to statistical learning in R. Oh, and shameless self-promotion. I'm actually writing a book, the StatQuest Illustrated Guide to Machine Learning. I'm writing it. I hope to finish it by the end of the year, have it edited and out and available early in spring of next year. So that's going to be an awesome book to have pretty soon. I think it's going to be great. I'm having a lot of fun writing. They're all sort of self-contained, generally speaking. But this book is cool because you get the big forest version instead of just a bunch of little trees. The videos are just like a bunch of little trees. The book is the big picture where you can zoom in and learn about individual topics, but just the way the book is structured, everything kind of flows, and you see how everything builds and is related, and it's super fun to write. I'm really excited about it. It looks great. And it's, like I said, it's the illustrated guide to machine learning. So it's just like my videos, lots of visual explanations, emphasis on that rather than on complicated descriptions and equations.
Hi, I had a question. I mean, from your videos, it's quite evident, the amount of efforts that you put into the videos, but how do you really arrive at what topic you need to make videos on? I mean, are these the topics you struggled with as a student, or it's always from the recommendations?
Early on, it was super easy. What's R squared? And I'm like, all right, I'll make a video on R squared. And so I was just using basically recommendations for my audience. But sometimes it's me trying to satisfy personal curiosity. And so it's
science and machine learning. So what would be the good procedure to get into it and grasp more things?
Yeah. So that's a good question, and it's going to result in a shameless self-promotion. I would highly recommend going to statquest.org and clicking on it's like video index. And I have a list of all 200 and something videos that I've created, organized it by topic and in like order of complexity, and sort of like, like you need to learn these things first. That's at the top of the list. Things that are, more advanced are at the bottom of the list. I would just go to that. I would go to statquest.org. I'd go to video index, and I would just start at the top and work your way down. You'll learn a lot of statistics. Statistics is like the backbone of all of this. And so you have to know it. And then it'll go through a lot of machine learning, from basic stuff to the state-of-the-art techniques like neural networks, like you're seeing here. So that's a personal favorite way to do it. Other people are there's lots of other people out there. If you're trying to, I did something in July called the 66 Days of Data, which was a challenge started by this great guy named Ken G. He's a sort of YouTuber type dude that I'm friends with. And he started this thing called 66 Days of Data. And what you do is every day, for 66 days, you spend at least 5 minutes doing something data science related. And one of those things could just be watching a StatQuest video. And what it does is it develops this habit of every day you're going to do a little data science. And after the 66 days, you're kind of good to go. You've got this habit built in. And so that's a great way to kind of motivate yourself to do it. So as part of the 66 days for accountability, what you do is on some social media, I mean, you don't have to do this, but it's recommended on some social media, or just talk to your friends, just tell them what you did every single day. So there's some accountability. You got people looking out for you. And if you what do? You tag me, you might get a bam or a smiley face or something like that. And when I was doing it, I was following a bunch of us started July 1st, and we were all doing it together. And when someone dropped out, I just sent them a note. I was worried about it. I was like, "Are you okay? I haven't seen you post for a couple of days." And they were like, "No, I'm just really busy, but I'll start posting again soon." So that's nice. And so if you do it with your friends in a group, it's a great way to keep that motivation going. So because I feel like learning anything, data science, cooking, how to play the Vina, all those things, they take two things. One, resources for doing it. You need food to cook. You need a Vina if you're going to learn how to play. You need learning materials to learn data science. So you need resources, but you also need motivation. And the 66 days thing is a great motivator. Getting your friends involved is a great motivator. So if you have those two things in place, you're probably going to do a great job learning cool stuff. I see there's some questions in the chat. Some of them are pretty extensive, and I can't just sit here and read them. So if you want to just chime in and see what your question is, that'd be great. That's a lot easier for me.
Hi, sir.
Hello.
Hi, sir. Sir, just wanted to tell you that I watched all of your videos on machine learning in the last 10 days only.
Oh my gosh.
They were damn helpful, sir.
Wow.
So, just out of curiosity, like which videos you are planning to make in the near future?
Yeah. Yeah, I can answer that right now. I'm working on a video on DB scan, which is a clustering thing. I'm also going to do UMAP, which is a dimension reduction method. And then I'm going to do the Shapley values. I'm also going to do natural language processing, recurrent neural networks, long short-term memory stuff, and word encodings and things like that. Those are all sort of like in the works already. So that ball is moving. I'm also writing my book at the same time, so they may not come out as quickly as I'd like them to, because I'm trying to devote some time to the writing. But those are the next videos. The next video. So we're kind of all over the place, video-wise. However, in the long term, once the book is done, we're going to dive into Bayesian statistics, and I'm going to show you how that works. I'm also going to do an applied neural networks, like how to do neural networks from simple little toy on your laptop, and then how to build it up, and then eventually deploy it on a cloud server. We're going to do a sort of an applied neural networks thing. I'm super excited about that. Yeah. Anything else?
Hi, sir. I just wanted to thank you too.
Thanks.
Just an experience from me. So these days, whenever I want to learn something new in machine learning, I just see if StatQuest has a video on it.
Cool.
Yeah, so that has been the norm for me. So really, thanks a lot for doing this. It's been very helpful. Yeah.
Hooray. That's great to hear.
And hello,
Hello, sir. It's me again,
it would
Anushree.
be
Yeah, please go ahead, Virendra.
hello.
Hello.
Hello. Am I audible?
Hello, Verenda. Yes.
Yeah. What I wanted to say is, like, if you would devote more time on writing book, that would be really helpful for us at least. Because I'm very curious to just go through your book.
Yeah.
What
the
you are
priority
writing.
right now is the book. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
We agree. I see somebody asked how much time it takes to make a simple video. And the answer to that is way longer than I'd like. Every time I make a video, it has to go through many, just like reading I have to read the same papers a billion times. The video, so it usually anywhere. So anyways, a StatQuest video can take anywhere from very lightning speed is about 2 weeks. But I've had some that take 2 years. My PCA video took 2 years to make. It wasn't that I worked on it 12 hours a day for 2 years. It's just, it took 2 years for the ideas to percolate and the example to kind of come out and it all to kind of fit together. And for me to go very clearly, it doesn't necessarily show the exact math, but it shows the mechanics of what's going on step by step. So that's the answer to that one. In the life of Josh Starmer, StatQuest is, yeah, I'd be happy to tell you what my day is like. I wake up, I'll tell you way more detail than you need. I wake up at 6 a.m. every morning, and I try to get some exercise immediately. It usually takes me about 30 minutes to get out the door. So between 6:30 and 7:30, I exercise. From 7:30 to about 8:30 for the next hour, I respond to YouTube comments and I respond to LinkedIn and Twitter stuff. So I've got about an hour of social media stuff. Yeah, it's true. This could be another video. And then I take a shower. I eat some breakfast, and then now it's about 9 o'clock, and I sit down and I start to work. However, I typically break my day into small units of 2-hour chunks. So I might work from 9 to 11 on one thing, and that line. And it also, like if I'm not making any progress, I know at 11, instead of just hitting myself against the wall, I do something, I switch. And if things are just starting to flow and I've got all kinds of crazy stuff, I'll work over that 2-hour, timeline or whatever. But I give myself about 2 hours to make progress. And if nothing's happening in 2 hours, I move on. I don't just keep hitting my head against the wall. I just do that throughout the day until 4 p.m. And at 4 p.m., I do another hour of social media. I'll do another hour of, StatQuest comments, LinkedIn, and Twitter. I have to be really careful. I used to just do those things throughout the day, and they chew up all my time. And so I sort of like cordon them off into 2 specific time points, and I do not look at any social media all day outside of those 2-hour-long chunks, because it can be very distracting. And so I have to be pretty disciplined about how I do that. The other thing I do in the middle of the day is I go for a walk for about 30 minutes. And the walk is sort of like, it's kind of when the magic happens. If I'm just sitting at my computer hitting keys and doing stuff and working very hard, I can get stuck into ruts. And I can lose the perspective of the forest for, focusing on the trees. And when I go on this 30-minute walk, I relax a little bit. And all of a sudden my brain can start thinking about things in different ways. And I can start questioning what I'm doing. And I've been working all morning on this example. Is that example the best? What can I do to make it better? When I'm on my walk, I start thinking about these things. And I'm not just making the example. I'm thinking about it at a higher level, judging it, trying to figure out how I can improve it. And usually when I come back from the walk, I've got all these great ideas. So I highly recommend moving some way, getting out, go for a jog or whatever, but move around. So that's, and then I cook dinner. I love cooking. So at 5 o'clock, I cook dinner, and that's super fun. And then I spend an hour watching TV from about 6:30 to 7:30 ish. I told you, you're going to get way more detail than you'd ever want. And then around 7:30, I actually kind of go back to work for a couple hours. Although I have to stop at 9 because I get so excited about work. If I don't stop at 9, I will work all night long. And so at 9 o'clock, I have to do something different. And so I was a little kid. And so I'm learning Spanish so I can go to Peru. And that learning Spanish is different. It lets my mind stop thinking about work. stop thinking about StatQuest. It gets my mind off that. It's kind of like a meditation thing. It lets me unwind. And then by 10 o'clock, I go to bed. So that's my whole day. And I do that every day. Yeah, it's a great day. I love it. I mean, it's magical. I feel like one of the luckiest people in the whole world. I'm probably not the luckiest, but I'm one of the lucky ones that can have such an awesome day every day. I just feel, I can't say how fortunate I feel and lucky I feel about it. It's magic. And a lot of that magic is because of you guys, because you guys watch my videos. I can do this. And so thank you. Thank you very much.
Sir, my name is Nanda Kumar, and I'm really thankful for your videos. Again, a fanboy moment, actually. So, so thanks a lot. You've been helping us understand super difficult concepts. When I see the video, I used to think, like it's so simply explained, but it takes a hell lot of time to conceive this concept and make a video out of it in a coherent fashion, as you said. So thanks for that person, and thanks for making it free. That's a big deal.
Thank you. Thanks.
I really want to thank you for this session. So I have one question, in continuation to whatever you have said. How joyful do you feel to be a polymath, like handling different things and doing things you like? And how do you think, being a researcher, it is actually practically possible to be a polymath and also have a successful career? Already you are one. I just want to know for budding people like us.
I mean, I've always been a firm believer in, I mean, there's different personalities out there. You have to find out what works for yourself. They're a little bit like that walk that I go on at noon. If I am stuck and I need to reset my brain and I need to just clear it out, what does a better, faster job than music? When I'm playing music, I can't think about that rut. I have to think about the music, like having an eraser and just clearing the chalkboard. That's what playing the ukulele does for me. It clears the chalkboard, and I'll play it for like 2 seconds. I'll strum 2 chords or whatever, put the ukulele down, and then I'm going to go, oh, I see what I'm doing wrong. I'll fix it, right? So that's why I feel like it's important for me to kind of be all over the place doing stuff, because it helps me get out of ruts. It helps me relax my brain so that I can then refocus it and see what I'm doing wrong. So I encourage everyone to find you can find a kazoo. You don't actually have to have any instrument at all. You can sing a song, and you don't even have to sing words. You can just kind of like go make little computer sounds, but anything that helps you reset your brain when it needs to be reset. Mine needs to be reset about once every 2 hours. Apparently, that's what I've learned. So I recommend it. It's silly. Like someone said in the comment, it's silly. It's a silly song, but it's actually not done for a silly reason. It's done for a very serious reason, which is the goal is to maximize what I'm capable of doing.
Great. I think it's very inspiring to see a living example of a person being so successful, like at a global level, being a polymath. So yeah, you will be a role model for him.
Hooray! Yeah. Cool.
So we'll just see if there are any more questions. If there are no more questions, I think we can wrap up the session. Does anyone else want to talk with Josh, like the last few moments?
Can we do this more often?
I'd love to.
Cool. Yeah, I wish you were teaching here at high-throughput. I wish we could attend your classes as well. But, yeah.
Maybe one day. Maybe one day.
Sure.
Where you learned tabla, or do you still play, or is...
So I learned tabla when I was in Chennai, back a long time ago when I was a kid. My dad was
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I had a guru. I can't remember his name. Mr. Mishra. Mr. Mishra was my guru. He taught me. He was kind of like a, and I had it, but I had a different one for Vina, and I can't remember his name, which is a shame because he was a great teacher, great guru. Anyways, I loved music. I still love music, but I was a kid when I was in India, and so to fill my days, I studied music.
Great.
Yeah. All right, I think we might be done. Thank you very much. I really appreciate everyone for coming to hear me speak, and we'll end with a thank you for listening to me jibber jabber for a little bit over an hour. Thank you, IIT Madras. It's been an honor. StatQuest. Right.
Awesome session.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks a lot.
Bam.
Triple bam.
Triple bam.
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah. Everyone have a great night. That's right. Triple bam. Yeah. All right. Everyone have a great night, and maybe I'll see you again soon.
I hope so, sir.
Yeah.
We will
Thank you, sir.
invite you soon.